Welcome once again to Commander by Danon. Today's video was brought to us by Patreon supporter Ignis. Huge thanks to Ignis and the rest of my Patreon supporters. Ignis reached out asking for a themed deck based around the dark isekai anime Overlord. Specifically, he wanted Myrkul, Lord of Bones, as a stand-in for Ainz Ul Gon, the main character of the series. But before we get started, I'd like to quickly ask you to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel, and it's free. With that out of the way, let's get into the video. Myrkul, Lord of Bones, is a 7-mana legendary 7/5 god. So long as our life total is less than or equal to half our starting life total, Myrkul, Lord of Bones has Indestructible. Additionally, whenever a non-token creature we control dies, we may exile it. If we do, we create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's an enchantment and loses all other card types. What Ignis specifically requested was an Aristocrats deck, but he wanted generals, backup commanders in the deck that represented the Floor Guardians and various other NPCs given life in Overlord. For those who don't know, Overlord is an anime based on a series of novels of the same name. The main character spent years playing an MMO and wanted to be there when the servers shut down. He was the guildmaster for the most powerful group of players in the game, and they all played monster characters. Slimes, undead, trolls. They took pleasure in being the villain, something both I and cutestuff completely understand. It can be fun playing the villain, both in video games and in Commander. As the server shut down, our main character found himself inside the world he'd played in for many years. Only this new world wasn't anywhere near as powerful as his old one. He went from being a strong character among other strong characters to basically a god. As the series goes on, Ainz Ul Gon slowly loses his humanity and begins committing atrocities. The series is pretty dark, but also a lot of fun and fairly unique amongst the other isekai anime. And so, we have several legendary creatures in this deck who represent characters from the anime. See if you can guess them, but I'll have answers at the end of the video. Now, before we get to our deck list, we should keep in mind our checklist. 50 mana sources, usually split between 37 lands and 13 pieces of ramp, 10 pieces of card advantage, 8 to 10 pieces of spot removal, 2 to 3 board wipes, 2 pieces of graveyard hate, and 1 sudden I win card. Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, Marsh Flats, Verdant Catacombs, Windswept Heath, Arid Mesa, Polluted Delta, Misty Rainforest, Indatha Triome, Godless Shrine, Overgrown Tomb, Temple Garden, Vault of Champions, Undergrowth Stadium, Bountiful Promenade, Shattered Sanctum, Deathcap Glade, Overgrown Farmland, Isolated Chapel, Woodland Cemetery, Arctic Treeline, Sunlit Marsh, Haunted Mire, Radiant Grove, Bajuka Bog, 4 Plains, 3 Swamps, and 5 forests make up our land base. Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, Pitiless Plunderer, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, 3 Visits, Farseek, Rampant Growth, Azusa Lost But Seeking, Exploration, Burgeoning, Skyshroud Claim, Wood Elves, Solemn Simulacrum, and Farhaven Elf help us to ramp faster, allowing us to play ahead of the curve. Setessan Champion, Morbid Opportunist, Village Rites, Deadly Dispute, Stinging Study, Diabolic Intent, Sign in Blood, Moldervine Reclamation, Phyrexian Arena, and Sylvan Library help us to dig through our deck. Reclamation Sage, Beast Within, Assassin's Trophy, Swords to Plowshares, Generous Gift, Anguished Unmaking, Ink Shield, Mythos of Nethroi, Fracture, Grave Pact, and Ravenous Chupacabra help us keep our opponents in check. Black Sun Zenith, White Sun's Twilight, Damn, Vanquish the Horde, and the Meat Hook Massacre help us to reset the board as needed. The Saraseer, Woestrider, and Krav the Unredeemed all help us sacrifice our creatures as needed. Zulaport Cutthroat, Cruel Celebrant, Blood Artist, Sir Conrad the Grim, Ellis Ilkor Sadistic Pilgrim, Poison Tip Archer, Bastion of Remembrance, Vito Thorn of the Dusk Rose, and Dina Soulsteeper serve as our win conditions and payoffs for sacrificing creatures. Marin of Clan Neltoth, Teysa Karlov, Elenda the Dusk Rose, White Sun Zenith, Chatterfang Squirrel General, Beladros Witherbloom, Anointed Procession, Parallel Lives, Regna the Redeemer, and Shieldred make up the core of our deck. Now that we have our deck list, we should compare it to our checklist. 51 mana sources split between 37 lands and 14 pieces of ramp. 10 pieces of card advantage, 11 pieces of interaction, 5 board wipes, 1 piece of graveyard hate in Bojuka Bog, and 3 Sudden Eye win cards in Damn, White Sun's Twilight, and Vanquish the Horde. Assuming our commander is on board and our life total is less than half, when we board wipe, we'll get most of our creatures back as enchantments. But we'll also get all of those Aristocrat triggers as well. And if we have at least one token doubler, we'll get even more Aristocrat triggers to close out the game. But I told you that I built this deck around Overlord. Ainz Ul Gon is obviously Myrkul, Lord of Bones, but what about the rest of the Floor Guardians of Nazareth? Albedo is represented by Regna the Redeemer. Shaltir Bloodfallen is Elende, the Dusk Rose. Demiurge is Vito Thorn of the Dusk Rose. Koikutus is Krav the Unredeemed. Mar is a druid, so I had her represented by Jaheira, Friend of the Forest. There's a scene where her and her twin brother Aura show up on the back of a dragon, so I had Aura be represented by Beladros Witherbloom. Sebas's role is filled by Sir Conrad the Grim. And Toma, with all of her insects, is Shieldred. Pandora's actor needed someone flashy and ridiculous, so I went with Ellis Ilkor, Sadistic Pilgrim. Hamsuke should be obvious. I know he's a hamster and not a squirrel, but Minsk and Boo didn't fit the color identity. Yuri Alpha is represented by Marin of Clan Neltoth. Princess Rena Thier Chardalon Rael Vaiself is represented by Teysa Karlov. If you know, you know. If not, spoilers. Finally, Nabaral Gamma is represented by Tina Soulsteeper. The point of the deck that Ignis wanted to have was that if any of our generals or floor guardians were on board, the deck could function even without the commander. A 7-mana commander can be a pain to cast, and even more painful to cast a second time. But with multiple backup options, we can close out the game even without him on board. The token doublers work great with Myrkul, but they also work great with Beladros or Regna. Now, as far as an opening hand goes, for this deck you want 4 or 5 mana sources, plus some interaction and card advantage to start. A token generator would also be good. Something to fill up your board until you find the rest of the pieces you need to start taking over the game, but it's not necessary. This is not a fast deck, as it is nigh impossible to make Aristocrats into a fast deck. You need 3 things in order to have a proper Aristocrats deck: creatures to sacrifice outlets, and payoffs. The more payoffs you have, the fewer creatures you need to sacrifice. By the same token, the more creatures you have to sacrifice, the fewer payoffs you need. I have built up very scary board states in the past and won the game when someone else board wiped. I'm very happy with how this deck came out, and so is Ignis. Hopefully he can grind his playgroup to death with it. Do you have an Aristocrats deck? Who's your commander? Leave a comment below. Thanks for tuning in. Once again, a huge shout out to my editor Cutestuff. I couldn't make these videos without her. If you'd like to hire her to edit your own videos, she can be reached at cutestuff.edits@gmail.com. Link is down below. If you're looking for ways to support the channel directly, you can head on over to patreon.com/Danon. One of the tiers is specifically set up for Commander. For only $25, I will build you a custom Commander deck based around your specifications and even do a deck video on it. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons: Waffles, Jiraiya, Muffins, Marcus, Phoenix Device, Squishy, Brett, Roxy, Josh, Sean, OT, Richard, Pob Zombie, Mark, Danny, Sandwich, Alex, Bryce, John, Ignis, and Daniel. You guys are awesome. I post new Commander deck videos often, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of new videos. Also, if you're a fan of anime and manga like I am, feel free to check out my other channel, Musings by Danon. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next time on Commander by Danon.